Well, whatever happens, at least we're out of that mud hole, Gilded Vale. I grew up in Gilded Vale. Quaint. That's what I meant to call it. No, you had it right.
That was a cute interaction. Alrighty. The heck was I? Heard there are less tame performances somewhere in Andra's gift. That Orlin is so funny. So funny. Just cracks me up every time. You didn't like it. Lamdala. The statuesque woman has a gaze that could cut stone. She turns her chiseled cheekbones to the sky and favors you with a look of acknowledgement. Her eyes shimmer under silvered eyeshadow and a razor-precise line of kohl. Before you can speak, she throws her hands up in dramatic fashion. Autographs after the performance, please. Great art requires great concentration, and greatness is expected from the Revel of Stars. What is the Revel of Stars? We are the finest theater troupe in the city. We believe that the best art is immersive and true to life. Don't disagree with that. She looks at the amphitheater with a rapturous expression. We stage our performances right here in Copperland for the edification of all. I suppose I can spare a moment for a fan. What is it that you do? That depends entirely on the demands of the role. She lays a slender hand on her chest. I am the Pallid Knight, the Widow of the Wood, and the Warrior Queen Makka, all at different times. To live a different life each day is a glorious thing indeed, my friend. Does the Revel of Stars take in many new members? But of course! Good drama is a balm to the soul, and we wish to offer a true theatrical experience to as many as possible. What kind of members do you take? We'll take in the new and old, the tall and small, the experienced and inexperienced, whoever is best suited to fulfill a role to the utmost. How long do you keep members? As long as they are able to satisfy the demands of their roles. She smooths a wayward strand of hair. True acting can be a grueling process, so some last longer than others. Adios. Alright, Kamdal. The benches are strewn with chicken bones, broken bottles, and greasy scraps of paper. Yo, that was weird. Alright, haven't been in here yet. Rishti Tungsten. You see a fire burning slowly on the side of a winding road, unmanned. There seems to be no fuel, no wood or oil for it to consume, no hay or twigs. Despite this, it roars, crackles, wails in the wind. It takes you a moment, but you begin to notice a figure in the flames. Its shaking hands cradle a young face, molten red tears marring skin the color of coal. The boy cowers, flame coating him as he holds his knees to his chest. In the distance, a man approaches, faceless. He extends a hand to the frightened child, who considers it warily before taking it. The flames die down, leaving his limbs and settling on his head like obedient pets. All tears dried, they walk together, fire and death, hand in hand. Oh, there's 3 of them here, goodness. Micarus Solomatine. Watch your claws, bud. Oh, that's the bone. Even better. Try and keep that off me. You see a wizard playing illusions in a town square, fingers plucking color and sound from the air and weaving scenes of beauty and fright. A crowd of onlookers gasps and cheers, enthralled with the display, all but one boy standing off to the side, mouth agape. Green eyes are pale with wonder, vision after vision playing out before him, and something inside the boy clicks. Without warning, he bolts, disappearing into the crowd, pushing and shoving desperately. The mage finishes his show soon after, a giant silver dragon descending through the crowd, and 1,000 stars exploding into nothingness. Collecting coins, he walks around the clapping crowd, bowing and nodding at each as he passes, until a small sack is dropped into his hands. The boy stands for a moment before him, small and still, and begs the wizard to apprentice him. He glances at the hefty bag, weighing it, and the boy, carefully. Finally, he nods and flicks gently at the bag, which disappears. The boy grins. "How'd you do that?" he asks, but the illusionist merely winks. The Vulture. You see a hand, curled and bruised, staked to the floor with a bent metal spike. Blood covers the floor and drips from the furnishings and walls. This man looks up from the body he is crouched over to survey the carnage he caused to the family in whose house he now skulks. 4 bodies total. A woman, 2 young men, and a girl lie blindfolded on the ground. Their legs are bound and both hands are attached to the floor with spikes. He has lifted the woman's blindfold and is currently doing something to her eyes. He pulls back a small blade and covers the eyes again, gently patting the blindfold. He stands and looks around, seemingly satisfied with his handiwork. Suddenly his breath quickens, hearing someone approach the door to the room. He bounces in place, excitement almost overwhelming him, then rushes to the back of the room, concealing himself in the shadows. From his vantage, he sees the bodies are perfectly arranged, each one facing the door, welcoming the man of the house back, arms outstretched as if in embrace. The door opens as he slowly pulls another spike from his belt, the tip of his tongue playing across his teeth in anticipation. That is messed up. Lupite Silverum. You see an impressive gathering of wild orlands in ceremonial dress, shaded by a copse of ancient oaks. Underneath the largest oak stand 2 young orlands, hands clasped, eyes clear as they promise to care for and love one another in the joining of their clans. An older orland steps towards them to speak, beard seeming to sprout from directly underneath his eyes, and declares their union complete. The jubilant orland clans carry the newly wedded couple away to their tent with snorts of laughter and crude jokes, leaving the older orland to sit alone beneath the age-old oak. He sighs, observing the scene in the distance. He whispers a quiet benediction, glad for their gladness, and melts into the trees without another word. He has seen enough happiness for one day. Oh, this is a big place. A dragon is outlined in charcoal pencil. The thick, jagged lines and the faint smell of sulfur suggest that the artist completed his sketch in a hurry. Cliff Dragon, White March, 2685. Kainra. A woman sits by herself, spinning something on the table in front of her and watching it with furious intensity. It's about the size of a coin, and it wobbles over a crack in the wood with a metallic rattle. She snatches it up with one hand and slams a half-empty cup down on the table with the other. This is not a good time. "You look like you could use another drink." "I'll get there." She takes a long drink from her glass. "Just trying to calm down, and trying to talk myself out of something foolish." "Something foolish?" She says nothing for a few moments, as if hoping you'll leave. At last, Kainra looks up at you, and lamplight falls across her face. A purpling bruise is blossoming along her cheekbone. "There's something I need to give to my fiancé, Pernisk. Only he doesn't seem to go anywhere without his new friends, and they're not exactly pleasant company." "Who hit you?" She shakes her head. "I know how this looks, but you don't understand. It's not like Pernisk. It's these new friends of his. They've brought out the worst in him." "Tell me about these new friends." "They come into our house with their dead eyes and their black teeth. I'm not a fool, I know what it means. Pernisk makes me leave when they show up, but it's obvious what they can't come to do. Last time they came, I told them to get out, Let them have their fun somewhere in the gift, but not under my roof. She scowls and then winces, her fingertips gently probing her bruise. Sveff changes you, I guess. The Pernisk I knew wouldn't have squashed a spider. I never thought he'd... She trails off, still feeling the swollen, discolored flesh. I thought Sveff just made people lay around not doing much. Kenra shrugs. I don't really know. Seemed better than believing he's always been this way. Maybe I could go talk to him. Her hand rests on the table, and she clenches it into a white-knuckled fist. There's nothing more to say to him. We're finished. I want to give this back to him and have a clean break. She opens her hand and a ring clatters onto the table. It was his grandmother's. Even after this, I don't have the heart to sell it off. But if I go back there myself, I know what'll happen. I lose my temper and I'll probably wind up with another one of these. She points to her bruise. But I've heard you're trustworthy. If you give this back to him, he'll know we're done. I'll take this ring to Pernisk then. She looks at you and nods. The house is just north of here. Just... please don't hurt him. As furious as I am, I don't want that on my conscience.
Nice and quiet.
I make no promises.
Finished.
Since I have a terrible... I always forget to actually look at these. I said examine. What are you doing? Plus 20% damage against spirits and vessels, and plus 5 will. The simple wooden ring is orange and gray, and it glows when you're not wearing it. The ring's actual history is more speculation than fact. While all sources agree that it was owned by Errol of Levi, and that he acquired it after a period of exile, stories differ on the particulars of how he got it. Some say it was a gift from one of the gods, and others say it was the boon of a pact he made with a wicked power. That's a really good item. Absolutely, I will do that over Gon's Pledge. And, what, give that to Aloth, I guess? Since he ends up being the target of attacks more often than I'd like. Brad Furus. As you near, you feel a vibrant history contained in the essence of this man's soul. Voices from its past seem to call out to you. You see a mud-soaked clearing, rain falling to the ground in large drops. This man is lying on his back in the muck, his hands holding open the maw of an enormous stelgare that stands over him, its front paws on his chest. The heavy rains fall over them, playing counterpoint to the grunts made by the opponents. Dead stelgare litter the ground around them, and the man's body shows signs of a difficult battle. His clothing is torn, hanging in scraps in some places. Bites and scratches cover his arms and legs. A huge gash cuts across his forehead, blood and water mixing as they run down his face and drip into the mud. It takes all the man's effort to keep the beast's jaws from clamping down. The man looks around wildly until his gaze finally lands on a large axe lying barely within arm's reach behind his head, the rain slowly covering it with grime and muddy water. He looks at the stelgare and then back at his axe, grim determination on his face. His arms are shaking, and it seems he will not be able to hold the beast back for much longer. He takes a deep breath and wraps his right hand around the stelgare's bottom jaw, then lets go with his left hand, freeing the top of its head. The stelgare's mouth snaps shut on his right hand as his left shoots out above his head and grabs the handle of his axe. The stelgare grinds its teeth and pulls back, trying to free itself from his grip, blood dripping from its mouth onto his face. With a grunt that quickly becomes a bellow of pain, the man pulls his right hand down, bringing the beast's head closer to him, swinging the axe around as he does. The blade of the weapon pierces the stelgare's neck, and it yelps, its mouth popping open as it tries to step backward off of the man. Before his mangled hand can lose its grip, the man pulls and twists as hard as he can, trying to get the beast on the ground, using the Stelgare's resistance to pull himself into a sitting position. He brings the axe down on its neck again, and again, and one final time as its head and his hand simultaneously come free. The head flies from his grip as he thrusts his hand behind his back to brace himself as he falls. As his hand hits the ground and his full weight lands on it, a second bellow of pain erupts from his mouth. Breathing heavily, he brings his now mangled hand up to assess the damage. The little finger is gone, lost somewhere in the mud. The two fingers next to it are twisted, broken, and torn, barely attached to his hand by small bits of flesh. He sighs, grabbing both dangling fingers with his left hand. He grits his teeth and pulls. Oh! Ugh. That was a lot. Poor dude.
Nice and slow.
Damn, Brad.
Let's see what lies this way.
A dwarf and an Orlin debate philosophy on the other side of the curtain. What else we got going on over here? Roy Ningwin. You see a half-consumed ale slosh its way across the distance to his mouth, spilling across the stains of food long past. Glazed eyes glance at the brawl around the room, gaining fervor as the fight extends through the room. Another ale, he murmurs to the bartender, downing his drink and turning towards the wall. He pulls a picture from his pocket, a painting of a young child, all brown hair and green eyes, and holds it above a candle. It does not burn. Ales later, he begins to sing, the bar a mess of broken chairs and wounded pride, and they all listen for a moment before continuing their drinks. Sveff, conversations. His ache is felt through the room. His sad story reminds them of their sad stories. When he finishes singing, a silence hangs in the air, palpable among the smoke and the sweat and the yeasty smell of beer-infused exhalation. He is the first to break the silence, ordering a round of ale for the room. The general din of conversation sparks and resumes, but the mirth is now tempered with far-off memories and thoughts. That's an interesting one.
Welcome.
Bishop. The man behind the bar is nearly the size of an Oumuamua. A handle protrudes from his back and his face is set in a stoic frown. He gives you a small nod. Here for a drink? There's a tiny pewter cup in front of him. He turns it in one broad hand, but doesn't drink from it. This is a lively place. It was founded in the early days of Deerwooden independence by a traveling scholar named Errol of Levi. He wanted a place where kith of all backgrounds could gather and hash out the issues facing their new country. He rests his elbows in the polished wood of the bar. It didn't take long for the place to fill up. Brackenbury aristocrats argued with dock workers from the Gift, while soldiers wrangled with the politicians. Deerwoodens have never been known to turn down an argument. He takes a sip from the tiny cup. I can imagine things got interesting. Soon, kith were coming from the farms and settlements, too. He waves at the door as if expecting a crowd to bustle in. This place got even more popular with the Valian sailors than the Salty Mast, and that was the problem. He drains his cup. No matter what people say about the fair-mindedness and civil debate, there's only so much people will tolerate. Errol found himself on the wrong side of an argument with the wrong Thane, and when he disappeared a few days later, some said it was the work of that Thane. He shrugs, spreading his hands over the bar as he surveys the room. But Errol knew which way the wind was blowing. If you ask me, he skipped town, hid out somewhere, hoping for rational minds to prevail in Defiance Bay. He cracks a wry grin. If only he could see it now. Tell me about yourself. Name's Bishop. Used to be a scholar of Barath. Now I run the Goose and Fox and keep the regulars in line. He shifts and you see a warhammer strapped to his back. What more is there to tell? How'd you go from religion to taverns? The journey isn't as long as you'd think. It started with Hollowborn. And with this, he takes a black bottle from under the bar and fills the pewter cup. It was my sister's son. He takes a drink. At the beginning of Wadewin's legacy, he was one of the first. I never expected there would be so many after him. Tragedy is part of the cycle, but it's followed by rebirth. Yet every year, more parents were grieving for their hollow-born children, and the gods were silent. What answer were you expecting? He leans forward, crossing his arms on the bar. Bereth promises rebirth. Cycles. But the only cycle I found was this one. He taps the bar. Have a drink. Have another. And another. Until I couldn't remember how I got home. Wake up. Come back. Finally woke up one day to see my family had packed up and left. For all I know, they'd left days before and I just hadn't noticed. But they were gone. So I came here. I've cleaned up since then. Not that I've found my answers. He tosses the cup back. I've just stopped asking questions. I order some refreshments. It was a sad tale. I'm going to hold on to this for now. I have a feeling I may... no, I won't. Just give me your money, sir. Hi, Steelyx. Oh, he's got a pup. And camping supplies. Absolutely. I will buy those. I use them a lot. The Steelgare's pelt is thick with dust and moths. The plaque below the beast reads, Maiden Falls, 2682. Hey, pup.
Margaret's fire casts light in dark places.
I'll get it open.
Yo. Oh. Old Valia, southern coast. Ishana Glen. As you near, you feel a vibrant history contained. Yep. You see a group of people standing on a clear patch of earth surrounded by several motionless bodies. On the ground in the middle of the group is a small figure, curled up to protect itself from the kicking feet of the people standing around it. This woman is there, apart from the group, holding an enormous sword. She leans on it, using it almost like a crutch, hunched over and breathing heavily. She stares at the people and grunts, pulling herself upright and lifting the sword from the ground. She draws in a large breath, leans into a run, and quickly closes the distance between herself and the group. A blood-chilling howl suddenly explodes from her. The mob freezes mid-kick and stares at the terrifying bull of a woman now charging it. She jumps at the last second, bending slightly, turning herself into a projectile, flying into the middle of the people assaulting the figure on the ground. Everyone topples as she flies into them. She hits the ground beyond them, rolling, leaping back up, and turns to face them. She plants both of her feet and lifts her sword, surveying the field. Suddenly she spins on her heel, swinging her sword with savage grace, cutting down the nearest of the assailants. Letting herself get pulled into the momentum of the spin, she brings her sword around, blade sideways, into the head of a would-be opponent. The bottom of the hilt shatters his temple, and he crumples to the ground at her feet. She looks up, rage-filled eyes daring the remaining two men to approach. After a quick sideways glance at each other, they turn heel and run. One briefly looks back over his shoulder, ensuring she isn't following him. She slowly lets out the breath she had been holding and walks over to help the figure still huddled on the ground. Alright. Herod Raoul. You see a man standing on a dock. Sailors, soldiers, and prostitutes swarm around him, but he's watching the ship disappearing over the horizon. He should be glad his men didn't take his life along with his ship, but failure is almost as bad a death for a Valian. And the gods only know he hadn't fared any better in his family's mercantile business. It's almost a relief to see that the last herald of his failure sail into the distance, sparing him the need to go back to his father and admit defeat once again. Besides, with sharp wits and an eye for opportunity, there's always a chance for a comeback. He pulls a flask from his hip and takes a long drink. There will be time for that later. He adjusts the flap of his eye patch and finds the tower of the brothel. He plots a new course for the evening, a grin on his face.
Finished.
And what does the flame reveal?
Oh man, so many of these people. Dash Oki. You see a grin slide across the face of a man, and onto the face of a woman, younger still than he. She moves closer in the tallow light, sure and slow, tasting the anticipation on his tongue, the desire on hers. The candle gutters, sending yellow-brown light sneaking across his multifaceted eyes. She sits back, now all too aware of his luminescent horns and dust-stamped blue skin. His otherness leaves her breathless, but from fascination or horror you cannot tell. He reaches across a hand, trailing the line of her jaw, sibilant whispers snaking through the air, tempting, cajoling. Something in her breaks, and his grin slides back as he extends his tongue to lick the curve of her throat, pausing a hair's breadth from her flesh. The thing we spoke of. Your husband. I shouldn't. He'd be ruined. A faint protest. The man wags his forefinger at her, tisking playfully, tracing a line with the finger down the length of her torso, causing her to writhe. He stops it just short. She gasps. No fair. That's cheating, she pouts, childlike. Not if we make the rules, the man winks, and he resumes his stroke. Bor Acaria. You see a firm hand scribing notes from an ancient, surprisingly sturdy-looking tomb. Script precise, pictures small but clear. The monk runs his fingers across the paper lightly, page after page, searching for something. The script is ancient, almost illegible, but he perseveres, scrawling stacks and sheaves of notes, transcribing the book into something more comprehensible. Suddenly he starts scribbling hastily, eyes wild, pen a blur across the newly ink-splattered page. With a start, he pushes out from the desk and closes the tomb, sending waves of dust to coast about the room, and grins widely. He hurries to the exit, notes piled under his arm, and a new adventure on his mind. Lexcanium McCreeg. You see a man... Oh gosh, I need water. Blech. What's up, pup? I know. I was working all day. You miss me, huh? Yeah, you're a good boy. I know. Oh, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. It's punching me right in the face. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, he's a good boy. He's a good boy. Yeah, he is. Look at that big tongue. That goofy boy. It's a good one. So licky today. So very licky. Yeah, he's a good one. He's a good boy. My big man. You see a man praying soundlessly on the ground, lips moving to some ancient and unknowable hymn. Lying in his hands, his sword sputters into blinding white light, banishing the darkness around him instantly to lurk in corners and shelves. He opens his eyes slowly, continuing his silent prayer as he adjusts to the new light, his face tight with concentration. He stands and begins to move deliberately towards an enormous iron door, strange symbols inscribed upon its rusted surface. His prayer gets louder, gains substance as he gets closer. Blue eyes burn with fervor as the glowing tip of the sword touches the center of the door and slides through. White light spreads across its surface, symbols flaring into life as the paladin chants. Can you back up just a hair? Alright, that's fine. You want to be on... That's good. A gentle tone sounds ringing through the ancient structure, and the door begins to open. The symbols have disappeared, along with the rust, and the paladin steps through into places unknown, bearing a light he is only now beginning to understand. You're ridiculous. Most unfortunate tale of Favia and Bernat of Valian tragedy. Oh, this will be a long one. Scene. Leia watches Bernat approach Favia's tree, looking for her human form. Leia. Behold, now comes the fun, that for which I have waited. His love is forfeit, her life is forfeit, and all I have worked toward shall be fulfilled. He says he knows his love. He says no force in the world could keep him from her. But what chance has force against guile? Never will he find his love, for she is no longer his love. The spell cannot be undone except by her death, and by then it will be too late. But wait, he has seen her. Leia steps back to observe. Favia. Pray, mortal, why have you come here? These woods are not for your kind. The affairs of men have no place at this tree. Leave. Leave ere your welcome lapses. Bernat. Foul creature, where is my love? What have you done with her? Always this has been the station for our encounters. Never before have I seen you. Where is my love? Answer! Answer ere my patience lapses. Fool, this is my land, and this is my tree. Your presence never before has been felt. Again I say to you, leave. My generosity will not be extended a third time. Leia steps forward again. Talk? Discussion? I know the way to hurry the conclusion of this tale. Leia takes a breath and extends her throat as if she's yelling. A scream comes from the copse of trees where the poagra stands. I'll have to look that one up later. My love, Bernat steps forward, brandishing his sword. Prepare yourself, wretch. For not even death can stand between me and my love. I will have her from you, or you will meet your end. Bernat moves toward Favia, who closes to fight. They fight. During the fight, Bernat is grievously injured as he delivers the killing blow to Favia. Wow. So vivid. Paint me a picture with your words. She falls to the ground, and as she dies, the spell on her breaks, transforming her back into Delemgan form. Bernat. Bernat! My love, what have you done to me? What was it I said? What was it I did? Has our love soured in your heart? Favia, my love, my life, what foul sorcery has befallen you? How have you come to be laid low by my hand? Fie, fie to the gods for such treachery, fie to all who stood in our way. Fear not, my beloved, for now we are together, and together will be. Nothing can keep us apart, but lo, why is it suddenly so dark? Where has the sun gone? Where are you? I cannot see you. I will find you. I will... Favia dies. A curse upon the fiend who has betrayed me, to hold love in your hand and have it wrenched away. Bernat winces and puts his hand in his shirt. It comes out covered in blood. What luck! What chance! Tragedy may yet turn to fortune. Favia, my love, soon I will rest in your arms. We will lie together again as one, and forever shall we be side by side. I go now to meet my love. Berith, I accept your cold embrace. I welcome your company. I beg your mercy. Bernat lies down next to Favia's body. I am ready. Bernat dies. I feel like this is something that fucking Calculon would do. Bernat, you fool! You wretch! How can you leave me? I am alone. I am forgotten. I am cast out. Without your love, how can I continue? Life holds no thrall without your visage upon which I may gaze. What shall I do? But here, my salvation, my answer. Leia picks up Bernat's sword. His blade, his weapon, I shall be impaled upon him, and he shall cut through me. I will not be denied, my love. I will not be denied, my love. You will be mine. If not in this life, then the next. Leia impales herself on the sword. I come for you, my love, my Bernat. Wait for me, and I will find you. We shall love forever. Leia dies. Alrighty then. The pages of these old books are crisp and fragrant with the salt of sea breeze. Not the best. Can I open that? That can't be opened. Well, that was an interesting little place. What do you say, huh? What do you think, Pup? Yay, nay? Three days, 20 hours. Why do I feel like the marketplace is not going to be open at night? Oops. Maybe I was wrong. Perigund. The Orlan woman bounces up and down at your approach. Remember me? We met by Madmer Bridge. She slaps you playfully on the shoulder. Thanks for helping me out back there. As promised, I'll give you the best prices in town. If it weren't for you, I'd still be broke. Alright, well, let me see what you got just for sale. Whole bunch of traps. And that's about it. Excellent. She does have a bunch of camping supplies. I don't want to buy a fourth in case I find one somewhere, and I doubt that I will, but...
Welcome.
Laura. The young woman stands by a cart, watching the crowd with large, bright eyes that focus on you as you approach. Take your time, traveler. If you're looking for enchanted scrolls or garb, you've come to the right place. Are you selling a dagger made of March steel? She stands on the tips of her toes and points to a stall between the stairs. You must be looking for Igran. See that tall Oumuamua over there? He sells weaponry. Understood. You do have, though. What is this? Whoa. Whoa! That's wicked good. This thick iron band is dented and scratched and appears to have seen much use. It is studded with 11 small beads, one for each of the gods. It was created by an Adiran priest to remind him of his devotion, particularly in the heat of battle. It is said that feeling his fingers rub against the beads, he would say a quick prayer to each of the gods, who blessed him in return. So that's an extra 3 spells per day. That's fantastic. Holy crap! That's amazing too. I can't afford that one though. Crap. Deflection and protection are always good. Some nice scrolls. That is a very expensive item. And probably just a bunch of potions and ingredients, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and buy that. Nope, I can't. That's 14,000. I thought it said 1,100. Don't know what I was thinking. But I will need to be back here because that and both of these are just nuts. I want them. I'm looking for a neighborhood with a tower. It's near a cemetery. Best you stop looking then. The place you want is Heritage Hill. You can see the tower over the district walls over that way. The Justiciar points to the northwest. But something happened there. They don't let people in anymore, and none of the knights want to be posted anywhere close to it. Steer clear if you know what's good for you. Where are the mad kept in Defiance Bay? Only place around here that takes them in is Brackenbury Sanitarium. I've heard they can treat your soul there, take the madness away. But there's just as many stories coming out of that place that'll chill your blood. There's a man, if you want to call him that, Ethelmower there. He's head warden. If you're visiting or checking yourself in, he's the one to talk to. Thanks for the updates.
Greetings.
Narmer. Well met, traveler. Are you interested in purchasing any rations for your journeys? Are you selling the dagger? I don't think this dude's an Omoa. Apologies, but I sell no weapons here. Only fruits, vegetables, and meat. Would you be interested in any of those? The fucking dragon meat? This guy has dragon meat. Considered a rare and exotic treat. No shit. For the fairly obvious reason that it is not very easy to obtain. Yeah. Many tales and rites of passage have formed up around the idea of consuming the raw flesh of these beasts. So those eggs, too. That's amazing. While full-grown dragons can grow to titanic proportions, their eggs start out just larger than a human torso. They make for very filling meals if one is willing to brave the risk of raiding a nest. Interesting. Okay. Neat supplies there. This is the dude, Igrin. Igrin stands behind a stall polishing a broadsword. The patterned flesh around his eyes is crinkled with age, and the muscles in his arms are knotty and lean, but he holds the weapon with ease. He nods at you. Come to take a look. You won't find a finer collection of armor and weaponry in Defiance Bay. Outside Sonald's, of course. He flashes a crooked grin. What's so special about Sonald? She operates in the expedition hall. He jerks a thumb over his shoulder. Sells the best equipment in the city, but Wenin keeps her on a short leash. Keeps her fine inventory reserved for chartered expeditionists, members of the dozens, and anyone else he takes a liking to. I'm actually looking for a particular dagger made of march steel, just like the Crucible Knights use. Let me guess, you've been talking to that kid, right? He laughs and shakes his head. I'd be tempted to sell it to you anyways and let the little rascal learn his lesson, but a pack of adventurers already took it off my hands. If March Steel Dagger is only given to Crucible Knights, how did you get your hands on one? Ygritte pauses mid-polish, his cloth slowing over the blade. A lot of steel passes through my hands, friend. I don't make it my business to ask where it all comes from. And if you give me a small discount at your store, the Crucible Knights don't need to know where it came from either. He grunts and rolls his eyes. Fine. 5% to avoid the hassle. Last thing I need is a shakedown from them, what with my stall being so close to Admeth's den and the dozens. Anything in particular you'd like to see? Those adventurers you sold the dagger to, where are they now? Folk like that only visit Copperland to crew up at Admeth's den, Expedition Hall, or down a pint at the Goose and Fox. And since they weren't headed into the den, well, you've got my best guess. I was just at the Goose and Fox, though. I'll check there again. Tell me more about the dagger. He oils the cloth in his hand. Made out of a high-purity iron ore that comes out of the White March Mountains. Traditionally, the smiths at the Crucible Keep have smelted it into daggers and swords, which they only give to the Knights of the Crucible. Of course, I'd be surprised if that kid didn't already tell you all of this. He grins. Let me see what you have for sale, then. Holy expensive! That better be one damn good bow. It's okay. Draining is good. Draining is actually amazing. This is the only thing I can frickin' afford. Shatterstar. All around Diora, tales circulate about fabulous weapons fashioned from stones that fall from the heavens, once believed to be gifts from the gods, and still often seen as such. These stones are now known to be meteorites. Even so, items crafted from them remain precious. Shatterstar was a hammer forged from a solid block of palisite that was discovered by one of the Eothas' faithful shortly after Saint Waidwin rose to power in Raid Ceres. It was crafted into a weapon and carried at the head of the Raid Ceran army during Waidwin's march on the Deerwood. As such, it was believed lost at the Godhammer Citadel. The head of the hammer is iron and nickel laced with yellow and orange crystals. It's held in place by a bronze band joined to softly jingling rings. I feel like that would be really, 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 really good for Eder. Ugh, excuse me. Oh, decent armor too. Yeah, really good. Born into a family of fishmongers. And you know what? I can't read every single one of these. I need to see who might this be good for. Not worth the money. +2 intellect, that's pretty decent, but again, not really worth the money right now. Not while I have none. Spending it all on my keep.
Welcome.
Hilda. As you near, you feel a vibrant history. Yep, it's always the same. You see a dimly lit room with extravagant decoration. Pillows of silk brocade cover the floor surrounding a large velvet-covered divan. A man sits on the divan, his shirt untucked and only halfway buttoned. Behind him stands this elf, dressed in the same lavish finery as decorates the room. Her hips gyrate gently, dancing slowly around the man as she begins to sing. He looks up at her blearily, intoxication clouding his vision. He smiles, tunelessly humming along with her. Her words are too low to hear clearly, but as her singing grows more intense, the lights in the room seem to dim even further, and everything loses focus. She takes his face in her hands, singing directly to him, running her hands down his shoulders and arms until she is holding his hands. The man's eyes grow heavy, and he quickly succumbs to sleep, slumping backward. She holds his arms, catching him as he falls, and gently lays down across the divan. She stops singing when his head hits the pillow, and suddenly the lights brighten back up and everything snaps back into focus. She slips her hand into his jacket, retrieving an item that she places in a small box sitting on a nearby table. She looks back at the man, shakes her head, and escapes into the night. Lenkel Greatstorm. As you see a man stumble. You see a man stumble, knees bleeding, clothes torn, eyes dead. His skin is damp with sweat, but he pushes onward. His back is arched, defeated. At his side hangs a bow, strings limp from disuse. He trips through the undergrowth, sightless, ignoring all but the sound of his own anguish. He comes across a deer, guts spilled across the forest floor, still steaming in the cold night air. A Stelgaer watches him from above, perched on the trunk of an enormous fallen tree. It takes the man a moment to notice his danger, and he seems almost glad for it. The Stelgaer unravels itself from the tree, eyeing him carefully. Its distended stomach almost brushes the ground as it jumps down, and the man dives to meet it. For a moment, time seems to slow as man and beast collide. The Stelgaer roars, swiping at him with its claws, and soon has him pinned, great yellow teeth and acrid breath ready to end his intrusion. But with a wet, ripping sound, instead the agonized Stelgaer is himself gutted from neck to rump. The man exhales deeply, covered in blood, ponderous. Not today. Not today. said the goose and fox, right? Ah. I may have entirely missed them last time. Scattered amongst such titles as Flora of the Living Lands, Unity and Disunity, A History of the Deadfire, Archipelago, and
Good day to you.
And Treatises and the Colquhoun People are half a dozen travel journals held together with twine. Alright.
How do you do?
Two-tone Wexel. Well, yeah, but I wanted to see... Crap. I shouldn't have backed out of that.
Good day to you.
Whoops. Oh well. Did you buy a March steel dagger from Igran? He displays the blade on a flat palm. I did, and a fine piece it is. I don't know of any more circulating in the city, outside the steel and the Crucible Keep, of course. I was trying to get it for a kid named Gordy. He blinks and kicks his feet off the table. A kid? This isn't a toy, you know. Get him a wooden sword. The Orlin woman leans over and punches his arm. Come on, Weexel. If our friend here is willing to pay, what's the harm? Plenty, actually. A kid'll probably poke his eye out. Besides, I plan to use this dagger. How much would it take for you to change your mind? He turns the blade on the light, admiring it. Seeing as how there's a sudden demand for this, 100 pans seems fair. Demand isn't as high as you think. Chances are good that dagger was stolen or looted off one of the knights. In that case, I'm probably doing you a favor. He frowns. Can't be too careful around the authorities these days, especially as an Orlin. Fine, I'll sell it, but not for less than 50. I'm getting my money back at the very least. Deal. He hands you the dagger, hilt first. Pleasure doing business with you. Is there something else you wanted? Who are all of you? The name's Two-Tone Wexel. Wexel? Weasel? Two-Tone Weasel. Whatever. The lady next to me is Key. We've had our fun with the expeditions, but we were hoping to enjoy a little peace and quiet for the next few weeks anyway. A man at the next table nods at you. I'm Dreadshot Dayton. This is Hurdy and Ilfa. We were part of a separate expedition teams, but we both suffered losses and decided to band together. He ticks several items off his fingers. Beasts, barbarians, Biowaks. It's a dangerous time to be an adventurer. But a prosperous one, too. At the next table, Dayton raises his glass. And here's to many more prosperous journeys. Orlin woman nods at you, a cup of wine in hand and a scepter across her lap. Ilfa nods at you, a pint in one hand and a mace slung over her shoulder. Dayton is busy filing a spur off a small round bullet. Burly Omua raises a hand in greeting. Alright, I'm gonna get this dagger to this kid and I'm gonna take a quick break. I think my dog needs to go out. No, buddy. Huh? Need to go pee? Gordy bounces on the pavement. Did you get it? Do you have the dagger? Can I see it? Oh, jeez, why are you so angry? I have the dagger right here. Gordy stops bouncing and stares at it, gaping in awe. It's so sharp. A deal's a deal. Here you go. He snatches it out of the air, heedless of anything else. He yanks it out of its sheath and holds the blade up to the light. I'm going to be just like the Crucible Knights. He saws and chops at the air. He flips the weapon into the air and grabs it at the hilt, almost slicing his palm open in the process. His eyes dart away from yours as he sheathes the dagger. So, about that secret. Gordy puts his hand up to his mouth and whispers loudly. I saw one of the actors hide something under a loose stone near the theater. Probably nothing as good as a March steel dagger, though. Great secret, but I already knew that. Tell me something else. He scratches his head and wrinkles his brow. Sometimes my dad goes to Andra's Gift without telling my mom. Some place called the Salty Mast. Ha! There's a secret worth some investigation. Oh my god. That response, though. You're dead. Your dad doesn't love you. Holy hell. Alright, thank you for telling me, Gordy. What a waste that was. Your dad doesn't love you. Oh man. Give me that meat.
I'll take a look.
Kondar freed. You see two men walking slowly down a stone corridor. They move cautiously. I know. Let me read these two and then we'll go aside, okay? They move cautiously, frequently looking behind themselves. One of them is this man who stops, bringing a piece of parchment closer to his light enchanted helmet so he can read it, while the other keeps walking, glancing over his shoulder. The first man looks up from his parchment, in the middle of a sentence, and stops, his expression changing from caution to fear. He starts to call out a warning, but it's too late. The Zarup, who appeared from the darkness before them, rushes forward and pushes its small sword into the stomach of the other man. It then squeals, seemingly repulsed by what is happening, and quickly backs away, leaving the sword protruding from the man's abdomen. Parchment falling from his hands, he leaps forward, catching his friend as he falls. The wound isn't serious. In fact, it doesn't even look like the blade has gone far into his flesh. The man turns his attention back down the hall, looking for signs of movement. Nothing re-emerges from the darkness, so he stands astrides down the hall, determination etched on his face, sword and shield at the ready. The corridor starts to widen as he enters. A whining yowl erupts from the darkness at the far side of the room. He slows, inching forward toward the sound. The light reveals a Zarup against a wall, holding a smaller one behind it with one arm. The larger Zarup has placed itself between him and the smaller one, attempting to shield the child with its body. The determination fades from the man's countenance as he lowers his shield and sheaths his sword. Putting up his hands, he slowly backs away, leaving the Zarup to care for its young. When the room narrows back into the corridor, he stops. Reaching into his pouch, he removes some rations and places them on the ground before returning to his friend. That was kind. That's what I tried to do to that one in the beginning of the game, but then I accidentally pissed it off. Things happen. Matthias Nicholas. You see an immaculate inn, dark wood counters gleaming, patrons rowdy and smiling. Two men stand behind the bar, joking as they pour drinks, features so similar they must be siblings. The younger snatches up an armful of drinks and walks them around the room, chatting happily as he hands out orders. Just as he sets down the final ale and turns around, a red-faced Oumuamua charges through the door, trailed by three sour-looking elves, slamming directly into him. The Oumuamua growls, knocking the young man out of the way, and demands an ale from the brother behind the bar. The man refuses, and the rest of the bar falls silent, sensing trouble. The older brother again asks the Oumuamua to leave, the younger brother placing a firm hand on his back and pushing him towards the door, and the scene freezes. With a sickening crack, the man is knocked backwards into the wall, neck snapping backward before he falls onto the floor. He does not get up. The action is immediate, as the other patrons come to the barman's aid, dragging the Oumuamua and his compatriots out the back, but the damage is done. The carpet oozes with blood, slowly seeping into its fibers as one brother dies, and the other falls to his knees, horror piercing his eyes. By the time he gets up, the Oumuamua is long gone.
Hello?
That's sad.
Hello?
Alright, entering the thieves' hideout. Not gonna shut off this. I mean, I can see him. He's good. Oh, okay. Right. Everyone knows the plan. Up. There he is. Come on, bud. Come on. Come on, handsome. Let's go. Good boy. Up the wall and in the window. Grab the jewel for the pretty little lord. We got it. Listen, dwarf, if I have to... Langdon, we have company. Greetings. The dwarf eyes you suspiciously and hides his pistol behind his back. You, looking for someone? Because this isn't the best. Langdon rounds on the dwarf. Idiot! They're probably with the Crucible Knights. You've made a grave mistake coming here. He raises his blade. Oh, frick. I did not expect... I thought I would have some kind of interaction to, like, talk to these folks. But, okay. When was the last time I rested? Everyone's full up. Alright, go. Okay, I'll look at that. Thieves' letter. Our contact inside Raymond Manor will leave a second-story window ajar. He's confirmed the location of the heart of the White March in a hidden chamber. Get your crew together and head to Brackenbury before Lord Raymond removes the jewel. AD. Oh, is that a quest item or something? Oh, apparently it was. Which means... Oh man, I'm so bad at the buttons. Alright, there we go. Which means this is probably not as important as I think it is. But I will continue to hold on to it. Now as for the rapier... Nope. 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 Maybe. Nope. Alright. Long, jagged tears slice across the garden scene in this painting. A few bedrolls and spare tunics are bundled in the corner.
I've got it. Finished.
I'm on the trail.
Couple of moonstones. What else we got?
Worth a look.
Yep. Bloodstone. Ton of money in here. House Dominel. I've read this. Muddy boot prints and splotches of ale stain the bed sheets. Take your shoes off when getting into bed, guys. Come on. Disgusting. Dunrid Row. The origins and practices of Dunrid Row are difficult to nail down. When asked, everyone seems to know how Dunrid Row started and how long it's been in operation, yet every person asked gives a different account of its creation and a different date. The only thing everyone can agree on is that it seems to have been around as long as anyone can remember. Without fail, everyone recalls hearing about the exploits of Dunrid Row when they were children. Aside from the organization being comprised of special investigators, most of whom seem to be ciphers, and the fact that they seem to have their hands in everything, yet never admit to it, anything reported about Dunrid Row walks the line between truth and outright hearsay. Information abounds, but no one can say which fragments are truth and which are fiction. I will provide all I have uncovered, and leave it to the readers to decide for themselves, as all of it feels both plausible and unbelievable at turns. The group is supposedly named after the street where its headquarters are located in a building called Hadrit House. It is said in some circles that this is just the name they want people to think they're known by. Their real headquarters, people whisper, is elsewhere. Why would they do this? It's simple. It's far easier for them to infiltrate, to hide, to carry on behind the scenes if everyone is concentrating on Dunrid Row. Divert attention where you want people to look, and you can act behind their backs with impunity. People who have had interactions with agents from Dunrid Row invariably describe them as unmemorable. No detail as to their appearance, behavior, or anything, beyond the fact that they were there, seems to stick with anyone. Are they truly nondescript, or do their ciphers use their powers to remain anonymous? As with so many questions regarding Dunrid Row, no one seems to know. While no specific details about the agents are ever reported, one fact that all people will agree with is that they seem primarily to be Orlans and Glanfathan elves, though theories as to why this may be are many and conflicting. Their presumed headquarters is supposedly run by Lady Idis Webb. Though no one seems to be able to pinpoint the time of her arrival, the author was unable to locate a single person familiar with Dunrid Row who could remember a time when she wasn't around. Many things are hinted at behind closed doors about Lady Webb, but few are willing to elaborate. For it is rumored that although she has not left Hadrit House since anyone can remember, she is a cipher of tremendous power, and that she can read the thoughts of the entire city at will. Theories abound regarding her age, her reasons for what would seem to be a lifetime of seclusion, and even of her secret control over all of Defiance Bay, if not Deerwood itself. But as with all other matters regarding the organization, no one seems to be able to say anything for sure. Alright, well, that was a fun little foray. Here I was thinking I was going to stumble into like the Thieves Guild or something and find a bunch of quests. Nope, just kill some people and
You have said you fought
moving
in
on.
the Saints' War, but for which side?
The one that blew up my guy.
I didn't mean anything by it. I imagine a man with a head made of fire and light could be very convincing.
Funny thing about Deerwoodans. With all that fire and light, they just treated him like another authority figure.
Keeping quiet.
The shields have been battered and scarred in long ago battles. Alright, let's check it out.
Mercenaries. All fancy weapons and no skill.
Oop, something's happening. A well-groomed man steps through the hall with a confident swagger, a smug grin etched on his face. He is flanked by 5 other hard-looking individuals. One of his companions eyes you for a moment before spitting chew at your feet. Another pup come wandering in, I see. Just know that Bind's giant slayers run things around here, and you'll be fine. Never heard of 'em. His eyes narrow. You have now. Stick around Defiance Bay, and you will again. Plenty of bounties to go around, but there's a reason the giant slayers get the lion's share. Remember that. A voice bellows across the hall. Enough jabber, Bine. You gonna do the job or talk about it? His jaw tightens. Wennon's right. That coin ain't going to collect itself. He looks at his comrades and jerks his chin toward the door. See you around, pup. Am I supposed to be intimidated by that guy?
Light, flame, and sound.
I'm gonna assume that you're only gonna sell to me after I talk to this guy, which is what that dude said earlier.
Don't stand on ceremony. State your business.
Rough-looking man glances at you briefly as he scans the mercenaries milling around the room.
Go
I'm
see
looking for work.
Osric. He's usually got something. You do well for him, maybe I can find you more.
Tell me about the dozens. Wennon's expression becomes serious, the timbre of his voice deepening. Good men and women trying to walk in the footsteps of great men and women who came before us. We're a loose association of warriors and expeditionaries in the Deerwood. Not as fancy as the Crucible Knights, mind you, But at least we remember our roots. At least they remember someone else's roots and pretend to be like them, he means. Your roots? The Crucible Knights take pride in having won the Deerwood's freedom 150 years ago, but we're the ones who protected it. Everyone knows that the Saints' War ended when the Godhammer destroyed Waidwen at Evondir Bridge. A lot of folks don't know how Waidwen wound up on that bridge. Seven men, 5 women. They walked out of Halget Citadel and faced down a god. Held him there until the bomb went off. He thumps the table. That's the legacy we defend. Some call us mercenaries, but we don't need matching armor and silky cloaks to remember our roles. We're the same now as we were then. We stand up for the people. First line of defense, whatever it takes. We got new enemies now. If it's not Waidwen, it's his damned legacy. It's the damn soul butchers in Brackenbury making things worse than all of us. Probably causing the whole thing, one way or another. Well, we haven't gone anywhere, and there's a lot more than 12 of us now. We defended Deerwood once. We'll do it again. Wennon casually nods your way. His eyes continue to float from mercenary to mercenary as he speaks. What else do you need? Nothing at the moment. Sir? Oh, dear God. Okay. This will be a minute. Book of the Hunt. When my students ask to be taught the way of Galawain, I tell them they have already failed. Does one ask a deer to present itself as dinner? Of course not. One must outwit, outmaneuver, and overpower the deer if one dreams of venison. So it is with the Seeker God. To ask a question is weakness and idle indecision. To seek answers is to understand, and to become one with Galawain. Survival begins with strength from within. But I only strike my students when they ask the second stupid question, for all of us begin young and weak. It is a point fact and not one of shame, and a central tenet to Galawain's teachings. Perseverance and cleverness are prized by Galawain above brute force, a fact my young pups often forget. It is right and proper that the strongest lead the weak, and it is equally proper that the strong be continually tested until the balance changes. Galawain celebrates the strength of the victor and the prowess of the well-fed predator. But above all, the clever hound celebrates the transformative nature of strength. Galawain's greatest desire for us is that the prey becomes predator. Muling babes grow into strong hunters, and the lost find their own enlightenment. This philosophy is best exemplified by the rites of the Animfatha of Ir Glanfath. When one of the Glanfathan spiritual leaders is old and nearing death, it is customary to enter the woods and confront Galawain's herald. If the Seeker God finds that Animfath's life, deeds, and soul worthy, the reward is quick death, and his soul joins Galawain's pack. If deemed unworthy, the Animfath is killed, his soul forced to find its own way to the next life, and his memory erased from the records of the tribe. Survival begins with strength from within, and weak leaders endanger the whole pack. This is Galawain at his purest. Even at the end of life, one must struggle for worthiness, for greatness, just as one must struggle every day to feed his pack. The Seeker God is easy to understand if one actively engages in the quest for knowledge, but his secrets are self-occluding to those who merely ask, desiring knowledge without the requisite hunt. My own flesh and blood once asked me, "Will learning to hunt please Galawain?" I told him yes, but added, Galawain would prefer that you hunt to learn. Didn't. Alright. That's fine. Excerpts from the Sermon of Struggle. Choice is a luxury we earn through peace. Struggle is our fundamental nature. Even when our war banners sit idle, mankind foments strife. Friends argue with fists, lovers kindle jealousies, merchants compete with lies. Wherever mankind goes, struggle follows. Magrin is goddess of fire and war, not bloodshed and conquest. though many in Raid Saros would tell it differently. How bitter they must be that Magrin's priests were able to destroy a god made manifest. How bitter indeed. We who worship Magrin are not addled barbarians or cloistered mystics. We are soldiers, armorers, watchmen and bodyguards, artisans of conflict and protectors of our families and flags. We do not salivate for battle. We view war as unwelcome, but struggle is our fundamental nature. We do not pray for strife. We pray for the wisdom to resolve it quickly. We do not wish for war, but when it inevitably must be fought, we find divine ecstasy in discipline, efficiency, and excellence. Magrin, guide us to the battle that is just and fair. Let us be your fire that burns away the profane, leaving only the righteous. If struggle is our fundamental nature, let victory be our inevitable state of grace. The Dozens. There's only so much I can read about these guys. Scarcely a decade ago, on the Evandour Bridge, 7 men and 5 women fought valiantly to protect their homeland. They volunteered for the mission knowing it was up to them, and them alone, to prevent St. Waidwin from crossing the bridge. They succeeded, even though they lost all but 4 of their number in the battle, and Waidwin was on the bridge when the Godhammer detonated. The final 4 were lost in the blast as well, their sacrifice a testament to their dedication. The Dozens, a group ostensibly formed for the protection of the Deerwood, was founded in the honor of those men and women. Indeed, those 12 men and women were posthumously regarded by the Dozens as their true founders. Initially, the group dedicated itself to protecting Deerwood from invasion, patrolling the borders tirelessly in search of Raid Saren forces, regrouping for another attack. When that attack never materialized, many of the Dozens thought the next threat might come from Eothasian loyalists living in Deerwood and began to turn their attention within. All new members of the Dozens are required to swear an oath to remember the sacrifice of their founders and remain vigilant against Raid Saris and any followers of Eothas. To this end, worshippers of Eothas are routinely harassed by the Dozens. The mindset of this group may be hard for some to understand, as any fanatical devotion can sometimes overshadow the ideals, but the original Dozen knowingly sacrificed their lives for Deerwood. From the Dozens' perspective, how can new members of the Dozens be any less committed to their country's welfare? What better way could there be to honor their founders? The Dozens are not a large group, but what they lack in size they make up in fervent devotion to their cause and a gift for gaining the ear of commoners. This makes them a force to be reckoned with, and there is no more influential group in shaping the discourse surrounding Waidwin's legacy. A small but very vocal minority of extremists in the group are calling for a new war with Raid Saris. Talk of purging the Deerwood of all followers of Eothas is also being touted. More recently, they have begun to see in the practice of animancy a possible cause to the legacy, and they have taken to the streets of Defiance Bay and the dirt roads of many distant settlements to make their case to the general public. Some point to this as one source of a recent surge in vigilantism and violence in the country. I can't keep reading tonight, my throat's starting to bother me. Oh man. Daggers mark the locations of various Angwithian ruins. Notes posted around the map lists bets on current expeditions.
Finished.
Yep. All right. Athletic skill. Who has enough lore to read that? Maybe you? Oops.
I shall be discreet.
All right. going to try to get through, since this isn't a huge area, try to get through these guys, and then I'll probably stop playing this game for the night. Make a switch over to Fallout or something. Or maybe just go to bed. I'm feeling pretty tired. But I'll finish this room regardless. Claruzema, as you... Yep. You see this Orlan cautiously making his way down a dark stone corridor. His eyes are wide, and he is constantly looking over his shoulder, every noise making him jump. He appears dressed for adventuring, but his armor is ill-fitting, and his pack refuses to stay on his back. Another sound reaches his ears from behind him, and he spins around, peering into the darkness, trying to discern the source of the noise. He stands there for several seconds, holding his breath, staring. When nothing happens, he lets out a relieved sigh and turns to continue walking. His pack slips from his shoulder, and cooking implements tumble out, sending a clattering din down the quiet hall. He freezes, listening in the tomb, silent aftermath of the accident. Booming footsteps reach his ears from behind him. He lets out a little squeal and runs away from the approaching creature, clattering through his spilled gear. The footsteps speed up and the Orlan squeals again, hurrying down the hall. There is a guttural growl close behind him, and he turns to see an ogre emerge from the darkness behind him. The squeal becomes a yell, and he puts his head down and breaks into a run. The ogre steps on the spilled gear and lets out a bellow of pain, breaking stride and looking down at its foot as it continues to hop forward. Panicked, the Orlan hits a tripwire pulled across the corridor without even noticing it there. It knocks his feet out from under him, and he tumbles to the floor, rolling a bit before ending up on his back. He lifts his head slightly and looks down the hall. The ogre has regained its stride and is running at him, hand out, intent on grabbing him. Both Orlan and ogre are unaware of the battle axe swinging a deadly arc through the air, accidentally tripped by the Orlan. The axe buries itself in the ogre's face, stopping it in its tracks. Hand extended, blood making a trail down its face and dripping to the floor. The Orlan stares wide-eyed as the ogre goes limp, its weight slowly pulling it off the axe with a wet, sucking sound. It comes loose and falls, eliciting a final squeal from the Orlan, who scoots backward to avoid getting squashed by the falling ogre's head. After a few moments processing what just happened, the Orlan quickly scrambles over the ogre's body and runs down the hall toward the exit. Just accidentally kills an ogre. It's hilarious. Corin. You see 3 human boys walking through a city street, pushing each other and joking with one another. They stop, one of them pointing down the road, and look at each other. This Orlan, though younger and smaller, is the target of their attention. She has a handful of coins that she passes from hand to hand and is moving toward the marketplace. The boys move quickly, working their way around her through the crowd until they form a line in front of her, herding her into a shadowy corner away from the main thoroughfare. The boys taunt her, accusing her of stealing the coins, talking over her protests of innocence. They threaten her, telling her that they will turn her over to the city watch for thievery if she doesn't give them the coins, because they can help at least 3 unfortunates with the money. One of the boys reaches for the coins, but she pulls her hand back. He cuffs the side of her head and grabs her hand, forcing it open, letting the coins drop into his palm. The boys laugh, thanking her for her service, then disappear into the crowd. The Orlan looks around, tears welling in her eyes. She spies a member of the watch and runs over, telling him that she was just robbed. The guard is unmoved, informing her that if he helps, she's just going to let it happen again the next time. She protests, telling him that it's his job to help, but the guard is unmoved and unmoving. She stares at him for quite some time, fury burning behind her small eyes. Without saying another word, she turns and storms off, her face set with resolution. Poor girl. Outer bands of this target are pocked with countless holes. The edges of these swords have been blunted for practice. Arrows are for practice in the expedition hall only. Purchase weapons for personal use from Sonilde. No
For the
exceptions.
last time, Aidwig, keep your fucking blade up. If that dummy was armed, it'd have your head off.
This man watches the training adventurers with the disinterested contempt of someone whose skills are wasted in this setting. He barks at one of them. Excuse me, I am looking for work.
Talk to Wenham. I just handle these mercenary shit shovelers. Adventurers, I mean.
Although, he sizes you up, I do have something I need done. Something that requires... He glances sidelong at an adventurer flailing away helplessly at a dummy. Competence. What do you need done?
I was formerly one of the Knights of the Crucible. When I left, they kept my arms in armor. The arms they can have, but the armor belonged to my family. I'd like it back.
Why don't you just go ask for it?
No. Oh, they'd like that, I'm sure. But I won't be going. Sooner be torn apart by dogs than give them the satisfaction.
It doesn't sound like leaving the Crucible Knights was your
Don't
choice.
choose to leave knighthood. The Crucible Knights, they may not be a real knighthood, but the oaths you swear are just as true. Still, turns out that even unofficial knighthoods have politics. You cross the wrong man, suddenly all kinds of accusations are thrown your way, and nobody believes you.
Nothing more destructive than a crowd with the wrong idea. What's this armor? What's so special about it?
Much to look at, and it's seen far too much use, but it's been in my family since the liberation.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a reasonable request. I'll see what I can do.
A low snake of a man. If he was to die choking on his own black tongue, it'd be too kind of fate. He kept it when he had me kicked out.
He leans in closer. I got word from a reliable source that Penhelm visited a forger in Andra's Gift right after having his soul lineage read by a cipher in Denrid Row. Should you have it in your heart to find a way to ruin his life while you're there, well, drink's on me. Having his soul lineage read?
They have to ensure a novitiate doesn't have a subversive lineage. If Penhelm's superiors found out his affidavit was a fake, his career would be over. Every novitiate gets an affidavit from Dunreed Row, and those are stored at Crucible Keep. If you find Penhelm's, one of those ciphers could tell you if it's real.
Sagani scratches the back of her neck. If generations of Masuk's traditions are any indication, this Penhelm probably doesn't remember it. Still, a past like that has to count for something. I don't really need to hire anyone. Tell me about the expedition hall, though. It's treasure hunting, plain and simple. Sponsors put up money, hire adventurers to go out explore the wilds, looking for ruins mostly. If they come back alive, they split the spoils. If not, it's because they handle their weapons like this lot in front of me, who might as well be digging their own graves right now. Sound like, that scene in Final Fantasy VII where you're at the honeybee place and all the dudes jump on you and they're massaging his back. Like, that's what the swinging sound sounds like. Just need that funky music going on in the background.
So silent.
I've got it.
Finished.
I've got it.
Finished.
Geological map. This map marks areas of geological activity in the Deerwood and Irglenfath. Of note is a description of a cavern where molten rock flows within a deep chasm. I wonder if that actually marks my map. It's a quest item, so maybe. Obviously not going to rob you. This woman looks up from polishing a dagger. Haven't seen you before. You headed out with an expedition company? She raises an eyebrow. Or are you betting on one? Tell me about the expeditions. They're groups of adventurers that venture into the wilderness. More than a few of them try their luck scouring the ruins. Most of them come back empty-handed, if they come back at all. Betting on them is almost as risky as actually going. But that's how the expeditions get funded. And every once in a while, one of the adventuring companies will strike it big and make a fortune for their backers. How long have you worked at Admon's Den? She leans on the countertop and drums her fingers. Oh, a few years. I got in the minute the last merchant cleared out. She nods towards the main area of the hall. They've got new expeditions venturing out every week, so this is a great place to do business. And the dozens make loyal friends, and loyal customers, so long as you stick by 'em. She taps the counter. The vendor who was here before me, they ran him out when he sold his best helms to a pair of crucible knights. I've been careful not to make the same mistake. Can I buy something? I'm afraid not. See, the dozens only do business with me so long as I only do business with them. And they're good customers. She jerks her thumb at the door. But if you get on Ostric's good side, he could make an exception for you. He's probably training some of the new recruits right now. Okay. So, still won't let me do that until I return his armor. You got nothing for me. Head back out to Copperland. Whew. Adon the Ingenious. You see a small band of people walking down a rutted road, surrounded by a thick forest. This man walks alongside them, chatting and joking like they were lifelong friends. Though his appearance is one of frivolity, his jovial facade is betrayed by the occasional sideways glance into the dense tree line. There is a noise from the trees around them, the sound of someone breaking a twig. The man holds up his hand, silencing the travelers and destroying the light-hearted tone of the evening. They look around, worried expressions on their faces, gathering closer together. The man motions to the group to stay where they are and heads into the trees. There is silence for several seconds as they all strain to hear anything, clutching one another nervously. There is another rustling, this time coming from the direction the man entered the woods. A single figure emerges from the tree line, and the group visibly relaxes, seeing him approach. The figure comes close enough for the group to see his face, and one of them lets out a cry of dismay when they realize this is not their friend. No sooner has the sound left his mouth than another group emerges from the woods, weapons drawn, surrounding the travelers. As none of them are armed or in any state to fight, they are quickly subdued, bound, and relieved of their valuables. With a laugh, the bandits disappear back into the woods, leaving their quarry on the road. Safely back inside the forest, they meet up with the man. He smiles, mocking the gullibility of people who will trust a complete stranger as long as he buys them a drink. He takes his share of the spoils and leaves. What a dick. Kitty. Wish I could do more with the cats. Jeez, stocking up on those. Alright, I'm going to enter this house and then I'm done. Because my throat can't take this anymore. So, thank you for watching. Those of you who are watching right now, I appreciate your time.